such an incident? Because it is reported that they weren't your usual cutlass-wielding robbers or that kind of a thing. They came prepared, sophisticated armaments, explosives, and indeed they wreaked havoc on the town. Well, to look at this and maybe how it happened and what could have been done and what will be done subsequently, two experts, Dr. Tony Ofeyeton in studio here, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security. Tony, thank you very much for coming on.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning to you, sir. And Dr. Kabir Adamu, MD, Beacon Consulting Limited, joins us remotely from Abuja. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, Kabir.
My pleasure, Uncle Yori. Good morning.
Thank you too, sir. Okay, starting off here, Tony, give me your impression because, look, we know we have challenges, security challenges, but that was dastardly and it was as bold as you can imagine. It was in broad daylight. They operated reportedly for almost 2 hours and generally were running affairs, the dastardly affairs. What does all of that say to you, Tony, in the first instance?
Well, I think from the information I gathered, it was a well-orchestrated and well-planned operation. Before the operation, they had been in that community or that city. They've done their own surveillance. In actual fact, we learned that they were actually at that police station to look at the numerical strength and capability. They also went to DSS office in the pretense of trying to look for somebody to see the capability of DSS within that locality, whether they are well prepared. They went to the vigilante office in that place, even requested for the head of the vigilante group of that place. Now, that they were able to size up the resistance within that community. And from the information we had, even the DSS were already aware, and they have given intelligence to the police formation there, that there are strange faces within the community. Invariably, the intelligence was not used, or it was not counted as being that serious. Okay. Unfortunately, the DPO that even ought to, tell stories of why the intelligence was not used is now with the casualty, so to say, which speaks a lot of volume. Because what they did is, first of all, dissipate. You see that the first place was the police station.
Oh, okay. Some reports said that they had first of all attacked a bank.
They divided themselves into different groups.
Everything was going on simultaneously.
They divided themselves into different groups. Those that went to police station was because they needed to put down and reduce the resistance to the barest minimum. While those at the operation of the bank, it took the intervention of the military or the assistance of the military to actually reduce that casualty as much as before the police could even organize themselves, before the police could talk about coming to counter or resist and all those stuff like that. Now, you will see that one of the people that was killed was a Fulani man, then the other one is a local. Now, that means that these people work symbiotically. Okay. Don't forget that the Ghana group had, since the death of Ghana in Benue State, the Ghana group has broken into different splinter groups. So you have these groups in their different, and what will they be looking for? They need to survive. So there's the necessity and the drive for sustenance. Apart from the fact that, okay, there could also be a continuation of the agenda of, the miniature groups and the like, those that are pursuing and pushing for the agenda of, the mayhems in Benue and the Benue region. So at the end of the day, you see it was a product of failed intelligence or unused intelligence. Let me not say failed, let me say unused intelligence. And of course, you also see at the end of the day too that even the banks themselves, what will they be able to do in this circumstance? They are not as fortified as expected. Well, so all these groups suffer their own casualty. We expect that a state like Benue State, being one of the, in the forerunner, the burning state in this country will be able to be proactive enough to understand that there are places, Otukpo, Makurdi, and the other place, the three major cities. There are cities that ought to be well fortified.
Okay.
Well fortified.
Let me come over to you, Kabir. You know, the question is also being asked as to, look, are these bandits or terrorists? Because such was the level of their preparation. Imagine traveling with explosives, reportedly. I hesitate to say what kind of explosive. Might have been dynamite, but you know, they came prepared. As Tony has been saying, they would have done their recce, would have known what they were up against. Are these terrorists or robbers, or is it possible to combine the two? Did you hear me? I fear we might have lost contact. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay. So sorry about that. I was saying that, and I hope you heard Tony before.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I actually had your question.
Oh, okay. So the question was, are these terrorists or bandits, or is it possible to have a blend of the two, considering their level of preparedness and the armaments? We've been hearing about superior firepower. Who has that? Do ordinary bandits have superior firepower?
So your question, brings us to the issue of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in the country. We've discussed this extensively in previous appearances, where we are of the view that there are more arms in circulation in the
Sorry to interrupt you. I beg your pardon for interrupting you, but we heard of rocket-propelled RPGs.
So yes, in the context of our conversation, weapons of that nature, even though they are military-grade weapons, are in the hands of non-state armed groups. And that was the point I wanted to bring out, that we have a situation in the country where you have non-state armed groups in possession of weapons where they're able to challenge the supremacy of the use of force by the state. Any group that is brazen enough to come out 2 p.m. in the afternoon to 3 p.m. and frontally challenge the state, it tells you that that group feels that it can get away with that act that it conducted. And the only reason why it can do that is because it believes it's in possession of weaponry that it can withstand whatever arsenal the state throws at it. So that is the center of it. With regards to your question, who could be behind that? Now, if you look at where Otukpo is situated in Benue State, there are, within Benue State itself, there are several groups that have that kind of capability, starting from the militia groups, and I'm happy Tony mentioned Ghana, the late Ghana, that remains unsolved. The group he headed, we're aware that he was able to create an active non-state armed group until the time he died, and nobody has answered the question of what happened to that group. That group has disintegrated. Some of them are still extremely active. And then aside from that, there are the bandit groups that are affiliated to both ethnic groups that are within the region, most of them armed. Number 3 are the state creations that have been weaponized. And unfortunately, we do not think, and in all honesty, the level of control over those state-level security apparatus that have been created have not given me enough confidence to tell me that they cannot be associated with acts like the ones that we're discussing. The fourth point is to look at the neighboring location to Otukpo and Benue State. If you look to the south, states like in the entire Niger Delta region and the southeastern states, you have active non-state armed groups that can easily cross into Benue and carry out those type of acts and escape. If you look to the north, you find Taraba State, where in the last few months, we've noticed an increase actually in the type of violence perpetrated by this non-state armed group. So in simple terms, there are several possibilities with regards to what group could carry out that. And that's not to exclude the statement released by the police, suggesting that that group is actually local to Otukpo. In other words, these are criminal groups who found access to weapons and then were able to carry out that group specifically for criminal purposes.
Okay. Well, you see, Tony, well, even as has already been said by Kabir, even the local security vigilante groups, all those ones were wiped out. And but it wasn't. I mean, it's still one is still mourning the loss of the gallant police officers who sacrificed, who made the ultimate sacrifice. But two of them reportedly were also killed when they abandoned their vehicles upon being accosted on their way out, and then they escaped on foot. And the Inspector General of Police has directed that they must be apprehended. Talk about that whole area, that they actually absconded on foot. How were they able to abscond if they were if there was hot pursuit and that happened? You abandoned your vehicle, and you now escaped into the forest, reportedly.
One thing you must understand is before this type of operation, there are a lot of variables and considerations. It's not an operation that was jumped into. It was a well-planned and well-orchestrated.
Okay.
Now, I'll give you an example. In your community where you stay today, it will shock you that the bike riders, they know the nook and cranny more than you do. They can abandon the bike, and they know when they take any place, they know where they will get to. So before this operation, don't forget I told you that the DSS gave a report that there are strange faces in this community before then. Unfortunately, the information or the intelligence was not used. So a man or group of people that abandoned their vehicle and decided to go on foot escape, they knew their route. They knew where they would go into, even maybe inside a canal, inside a hole, and you will pass them, and you would have even lost them within a twinkle of an eye. It was something that had been planned ab initio. For me as a person, I think that it comes back to play on certain things. When Dr. Adamu was talking, he was talking about some of these things. You look at what are the areas we are not getting it right. Proliferation of arms is one of such. Now, you have problem with arming Amoteco. Why? Because you reportedly believe that it can be misused. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, you are now leaving them vulnerable. What happens if you have state police that has been a major issue? Why can't the government come to terms with the fact that a lot of things are changing, and we need to also change with type of events?
To bring you a live
Why can't we have...
Our regular programs will continue shortly. Please stay tuned.
Representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Ahmed Jaha, representing Chibok, Damboa and Gwoza constituency, who is the Chairman, Insurance and Actuarial Matters in the House of Representatives. The Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wali Edu, who's represented here by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Mr. Okukun. Let me also acknowledge other representatives of ministers who are here present, permanent secretaries, heads of departments and agencies,